All right, welcome back to the Digicom Cafe, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always ready to jump into the signals, you know me.
This time we're tuning our frequencies to something a little different. It's push to talk over cellular. We've had some questions about this.
POC, right. Yeah, I've been seeing that popping up more and more. It's basically walkie-talkies, but they use cell phone tech instead of radio waves.
Exactly, and specifically we're focusing on Talk2Me. It's an app, runs on something called the Global PTT Network. Listener wants the lowdown, the good, the bad, the whole signal strength report on this thing.
Makes sense. Lots of folks are curious if this is the next big thing or just a blip on the comms radar.
Well, their marketing sure is eye-catching. They call themselves the nationwide two-way walkie-talkie radio.
Bold claim. I mean, nationwide coverage for a walkie-talkie, that'd be pretty game-changing, wouldn't it?
Right, especially for folks who rely on clear and consistent communication. So what makes Talk2Me different from, say, just grabbing a couple of cheap walkie-talkies from the store?
Okay, so digging into their website, a few things stand out. One, they use a standard SIM card for coverage. That tells me they're piggybacking on existing cell networks.
So it's not actually using radio waves like traditional radios?
Nope. It's more like a giant internet phone call, you know? Voice over IP, VoIP.
Ah, so it's using data then. Interesting. But wouldn't that make it susceptible to the same limitations as cell phones? Dead zones, dropped calls, that sort of thing.
That's the big question, right? They do have this interesting claim about working where cell phones fail, though, which is a bit of a head-scratcher.
Yeah, how does that even work? Do they have their own network of secret towers hidden somewhere?
Not quite. They mention their network is private, except for something called the PRS network. I have to admit I'm not entirely familiar with that one.
Mysterious. Okay, well, while you're researching that, let's talk about cost. Their website mentions a lease for $13.96 a month with discounts from multiple radios. That sounds pretty affordable compared to some of the other options out there.
Yeah, on the surface it seems pretty competitive. But, there's always a but, right? We need to dig deeper. Leasing, for example, you never actually own the equipment.
Ah, so you're stuck paying forever. Plus, who knows what kind of hidden fees or data charges they might sneak in there. And speaking of hidden details, there's this mention of a dispatcher application free for 30 days. What's the deal with that?
So dispatcher apps, those are usually used by, well, dispatchers. Think trucking companies, emergency services, anyone coordinating a fleet of radios.
So this is hinting that Talk2Me is more than just your casual walkie-talkie. They're aiming for bigger players, businesses, organizations, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Could be good for coordination, logistics, but adds another layer of complexity to the whole system, too.
And let's not forget the other features they tout. GPS tracking, SOS alerts, digitally secure communication with 256-bit encryption. Sounds impressive, but are these features as reliable as they claim?
That's the million-dollar question. 256-bit encryption, that's pretty strong stuff, if it's implemented correctly. But we'd need to really dig into their security protocols to be sure. And the GPS tracking, SOS alerts, those depend heavily on that consistent data connection, right? Makes you wonder how they'd hold up in those dead zones they claim to cover.
Okay, so let's take a step back and sum this up for our listeners who are thinking about ditching their old radios for Talk2Me.
Sure. So on one hand, you've got the potential for nationwide coverage, those advanced features like GPS and encrypted comms, and a cost that seems, at least initially, pretty reasonable.
Sounds pretty tempting. But on the flip side, there are those lingering questions.
Right. How reliable is their coverage, truly? Is the security as robust as they say? And how much are you really saving in the long run when you factor in the leasing model and potential hidden costs?
And don't forget that dispatcher app. That suggests they're really targeting a specific market, businesses and organizations, which might not be what everyone's looking for.
Absolutely. So the bottom line is, Talk2Me is definitely an interesting development in the world of two-way radios, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
It's like with any new tech, there's potential, but there are also risks. Do your homework, folks. Research those claims, understand the technology, and think about what your specific needs are.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Don't just take their word for it. Dig a little deeper.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought. Talk2Me makes a big deal about no FCC license being required. On the surface, that sounds super convenient, less hassle, right?
Yeah, definitely less paperwork.
But it also means they're playing by a different set of rules. Think about it. What does that mean for their operations, their security protocols, even user privacy? It's something to ponder. A different flavor of communication with its own blend of pros and cons.
Good point. Definitely something to keep in mind as you explore the world of Pylossy. Lots to consider beyond just the initial specs.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Talk2Me. Hope you all found it informative and, as always, keep those signals strong out there.
And stay tuned for more deep dives into the ever-evolving world of digital communications.